Ladies and gentlemen, the time on the channel has finally come to talk about... Gold! Yeah, it's Adeptus Custodes time. That's right, I know that there's a fair chunk of you that already collect Custodes, and probably an even longer queue of you that just want a decent way to paint gold. So I've been kind of thinking about doing this video for a while now, and I wanted to maybe just take a little pause from all the Indomitus related Space Marine content. All of my Indomitus stuff is just about to land with me, so there's going to be a flood of that coming soon, and I thought now is a good time just to sneak in a little something different. So we're going to have a look at Custodes. This is actually a commission. It was a piece that was requested from me from one of my regular clients. I've done quite a few Ultramarines for the guy previously, and now it was time to start on his Custodes army, and he wanted just a method that looked really cool, but he would be able to replicate it at home as well. So another purpose to making this guide is also just for you, Prawn King, so that you can replicate this at home. Anyway, let's get into it. It's going to be a fairly lengthy one, just because there's a lot of steps. It's a character miniature. So let's get to down cam and let's paint Trajaan Valoris. Is that how you say his name? I hope that's how you say his name. Okay folks, let's get into it. So first of all, we've got our Custodes here primed black, and we've got the head as a separate sub-assembly. We're going to start off with old copper from scale 75. Now the importance of this is that because we want a gold armor, we want a shade color that is deeper than gold, but gold copper through the airbrush, and I am specifically applying it through the airbrush for this reason, it tends to go on sort of with a natural bit of a gold highlight to it anyway, so it blends really nicely into gold. You could definitely do this with a solid coat of copper followed by a dry brush of gold, but we're going to get into that gold now anyway. Elven Gold is the gold of choice here. And we're just spraying sort of zenithly here, kind of. Just trying to pick up raised areas basically over that copper. And you can see what I mean about that natural transition. As these two colours come together, they really nicely just marry up with the airbrush. And so that was why I chose to do it that way. The customer happens to own an airbrush, so it works fine for them. We're going to shade that with mid-brown from Army Painter Quickshades. Again, just an all over, just hit it, you know, pretty much everywhere. Not being particularly ceremonious with this. Just getting it into all those cracks and recesses to make them look beautiful. That's what we're looking like after the shade has dried. I did let the shade dry naturally just because I tend to find with hair dryers on glossy colours like gold, the shade will sort of run out of the crevices. Going to grab Heavy Metal next from Scale 75 Metallics. This is just going to be a light dry brush. We're just going to build up some nice highlight with this. I do suggest that you try to just target the areas that are quite rich in gold. If you dry brush this silver over the copper, it tends to look a bit funny. But that's what we get from the end of it. Looking nice and bright and shiny now, as a Custodes should. I'm going to go into my Scale 75 Art Black now, but any black will do here. Just pick a black that you like. I'm just going to show you the areas that we're going to be blacking out. This is just to get ready for painting other processes. So basically all of the weapon, all of the cape, the lion, the feathers at the front and back, the cape just as it wraps around there, and then we'll start getting on with blacking all that in. Lovely shot of my arm hair there for you to enjoy. Okay, so that's everything blacked in now, ready to start receiving some more colours. A new pickup for me next, Vorbak Red. In my Wordbearer's obsession, I decided to grab a pot of this, and I'm actually quite enjoying using it. It's a nice colour, it's pretty. So we're going to get all of that sort of bottom robe inside and out done, and we're going to do like a glaze up on the feathers. I do show glazing in some other videos, so I'm going to skip over it in this one, but it's just a continuous glaze heading towards the top of the feathers there. And for the robe itself, we're painting more at sort of full thickness, just trying to get some coverage there. And that's what that looks like once the glaze is built up on the feathers and the robe is solidly Vorbak Red. Just going to zoom in on that so you can see how smooth that glaze is as well. That's the real reason for doing that, is because it kind of matches the smoothness of airbrush. We're going to Nuln Oil those same areas now, so Again, you don't really need to see a great deal of me doing this. I'm just going to kind of quickly blast through it. You know how to Nuln Oil things. And then into Wordbearer's Red, I happen to have a pot of air on hand. I've explained this before, because they're my army, I tend to base coat them with the airbrush, so it's usually the air that I have on hand, but the normal's fine as well. We're just going to start pushing some glazes towards the raised edges here, and just build up some nice transitions. We want to keep this smooth, so we want thin paint that we can just push in the direction that we want that intensity. You can see, once a bit of that is built up, it does look really nice when it's all smooth and blendy, so we do want to kind of try and think about it that way. And then exactly the same with some Mehpiston Red. We're just going to basically take those same areas, shrink down the blends that we were already doing, and continue to do more of the same just to get some extra brightness in there. You can see these three colours, they really like just kind of working together in a nice smooth little triad, so I do like to use these three paints together. I especially like Mehpiston Red as the top colour in the three as well, because it's the most matte, so it tends to pull down some of the satininess of the others. You can see that looks lovely now, nice and rich, nice and red. That's what we're after. We're going to grab some Arctic Blue next, and we're going to be working with this in conjunction with our black. Again, I just like a sort of blue-grey mixed in with my black when I'm doing just kind of neutral black highlights. And I'm just going to start building up, adding more and more and more Arctic Blue, just to get all of the blacks highlighted on this. So again, I'm not really going to show that because it's, you know, it's stuff that you'll kind of have your own approach to, or you'll have seen me do previously. But there's a little shot of what those blacks look like once they're all highlighted up. We did get pretty much into pure Arctic Blue, not quite. And then just with a black glaze, we're just going to reinstate some shadows on the cloak. Specifically on the cloak, just because, you know, we want pretty good contrast on that, just to make the most of all of those kind of ruffles and bits of shape and loveliness. That's what the cape looks like once those blacks are reaffirmed. A little bit stronger, a little bit nicer. You knew it was coming at some point, folks. Vallejo Metal Colour Dark Aluminium. I don't seem to be able to paint a miniature without this paint lately. I don't even apologise. Pretty obvious which areas you're going to want silver, but just showing you quickly here in case you're not super familiar with Custodes miniatures. I like to do the triggers, the pipes underneath the breastplate, any sort of moving parts on the weaponry, that kind of thing. Get all of that blocked in now. That's how that looks once it's all nice and shiny and silver. And then we're going to lather on some Nuln Oil. Dark Aluminium and Nuln Oil really are just very good friends. They really, really like each other. And that's how it looks once it's been Nuln Oiled. Okay, we're starting to get somewhere now. You can really kind of see hints of what the finished miniature is going to look like. So here we're just coming back into that dark aluminium now, just to drop in a couple of little highlights. I don't really normally edge highlight metallics that much, because they sort of edge highlight themselves. When the recess shrinks back off the edges, you sort of get the effect of an edge highlight, and I don't really think it's necessary a lot of the time. But if you want a bit more shine, then that's a good time to do it. We're also going to grab some old copper again here, just showing you this again because we haven't used it for a while. We're going to basically do the same gold workup that's on the armour, except with a brush, just to get the filigree on the weapon looking nice. So this is what I was saying about you could absolutely do this armour with a brush. You don't have to use an airbrush for it. You'll see when we're doing this filigree here that these two colours, you know, they do just blend together nicely, even with a traditional brush. Here's the Elven Gold now to start highlighting that. There you go, you can see as soon as that goes on, like the two colours just really like each other. They're not afraid to work together. I'll just pick out a few highlights there on that filigree. Not going too crazy. Beautiful. Okay, here comes the wet blending and the gemstones now. Again, I haven't broken this down into individual sections, but I'm using Boreal Green from Scale and Alien Goo from Reaper. I paint the entire axe head first in the Boreal Green before I start to do the wet blend on that. And all the gemstones are going to get a hit with it as well. Like I say, I'm not going to actually show that wet blend on the axe head because I literally just released a video on wet blending. But basically we just wet blended it up from the Boreal Green to the Alien Goo and then did a bit of edge highlighting in Alien Goo before now getting into this stage, which is to paint these little squiggly lightning patterns on. This is just very, very thin Alien Goo. And we need the blend complete underneath before we can paint this on. So we just spanked through that section and just showing you this one now. And then I do actually glaze back into the shadows again after this is on as well. I sort of build this up with a bit more brightness, and then you can see here I've used that Boreal Green just to push it back towards the shadows. So once that's finished, it ends up looking really sexy. Zandri Dust and Tenere Yellow now, as we're going to take a look at that lion pelt on his shoulder. First of all, just an all-over coat of Zandri Dust. This is nice and thin, so I can be very sloppy and very quick with it. Zandri Dust is such a good coverage paint that if you get it thin like this, you can really just kind of slap it on, and it's super forgiving. And then mixing Tenere Yellow into Zandri Dust, we're going to start building up highlights, eventually getting towards pure Tenere Yellow, and then indeed actually towards a little bit of Mojave White added into that mix as well. I like to not give exact recipes for this kind of thing because I like you to judge for yourself where you want your contrast to live. In this case, I went up to pretty much pure Tenere Yellow and then just a tiny, tiny amount of Mojave White in there before now coming in with some black just to dot in the lion's nose and around the eyes. I'm going to smash some Seraphim Sepia all over that next. Being liberal with this as well. We're in a really useful place here in that the only thing that it really joins up to is gold. I mean, it wouldn't really show on the black anyway, but on the gold it'll do nothing negative whatsoever, so we can kind of just slap this on and be really, really generous with it. And then a dry brush of Tenere Yellow mixed with Mojave White. And this is just to sort of pick back up on some of those details that we highlighted in. And if I remember rightly, I think I also just manually highlighted a few little fine edges of this as well. But again, you know, judge it by your own eyes. Decide for yourself whether you think it needs pushing further or whether it's fine. The Aquila on the cape, I ended up... This was the one part of this commission I wasn't sure of. I actually really wanted to leave it all black and just have it as like a, you know, a sort of piping in the back of the cape. But I felt like it needed a bit of something. So in the end I started working in some Word Bearers Red, and then you'll see me with Mehpiston Red highlighting. Not essential, but just a decision I made. Now we're finally onto the face. These are the three colours I use: Bugman's Glow, Cadian Fleshtone, Ionrach Skin. I'm showing these all together at the same time because I'm pretty much never painting with them pure. I'm almost always mixing them. In this first instance here, I'm just giving everything a coat of Bugman's Glow. And then from here onwards, we're pretty much never going to be painting with those paints pure. We're just going to be mixing them as we feel we need more or less brightness. So that's a coat of Bugman's Glow. Then a quick hit of that same mid-brown actually that we used on the gold, the mid-brown wash. And then from there we can actually start to get into the nitty-gritty of the skin now. So you see I'm going to just start with really, really thin glazes, pushing down towards my highlight points, pushing down towards the bottom of the forehead, the cheekbones, that kind of thing. Then the idea here is really just to create a distinction between the hairline and the front of the face. You want that light to gather on the front of the face. And funny enough, what I actually use as my inspiration when I'm planning this is drag makeup. If you look at the way drag queens do their makeup, they'll put a halo of dark around the sides of their face and then pull more and more light towards the front. And that's what creates that really sort of impactful look at my face look, which is what we want with miniatures. We want to draw people's attention to the face. So we go from Bugman's mixed with Cadian to pure Cadian to Cadian mixed with Ionrach, and then I think we even dot a little bit of Ionrach on here. And Then for the hair, we do exactly the same grey workup as we did before with the Arctic blue, but we're just taking it much, much further this time. We're going to take it really, really, really bright this time, so just keep adding coats and coats and coats and coats until it's super, super bright. The hair's very, very simple. And that's what you end up with. I think that actually looks super beautiful and really high impact when you get it all together. But when you glue it to the mini, well, look at our fella there. I mean, that just screams, I am the leader of this faction, doesn't it? Like, you can tell this guy is a command miniature. Just got some serious fucking regal vibes. I temporarily stuck him on an ice base here that I'd made previously. This was just really for your guys' benefit for the spinny thing. It's actually going to the client unbased so they can work on it themselves. And there it is, one of the Emperor's shiniest golden boys, rendered up beautifully for you with a few nice little tricks in there. I know that there were a few parts of that where I mentioned in the down cam that I didn't show specific things, for example, that wet blend on the axe, just because I have separate tutorials for all of those. And, you know, we're kind of trying to build a knowledge base here. So when you put all that stuff together, you can do cool stuff like that. And the point of this was more as a demonstration of, you know, here's a bunch of stuff that we've learned over the course of making these videos. If we put it all together, here's something sweet that we get out at the end of it. I had a really, really good time painting that commission. I ended up actually just hammering through the whole thing in a single day. So all of that footage that you see there was all recorded in one day's painting because I was just having such a good time I didn't want to stop. And that's kind of the beauty of when you just hit those color schemes that are just working for you and you get that feeling of just, I'm addicted to painting this right now, I do not want to stop. I love that. That's one of the best feelings you can get in painting. So thank you again, Prawn King, for the commission. Had a really, really good time with that. Now then, folks, it is time for me to sign off for this one. I will be back with more quick tips later in the week. Until then, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel because that really, really helps me get seen, and I really, really want to be seen. I'm just so desperate for attention. Anyway, people, I will be back very, very soon. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.